Hey guys, okay. I'm finally making my summer guide for The Worth End Season 1. Um, yeah, so, uh, I'm gonna go over everything you need to know, starting with the Subtlety specific abilities, different talent nodes, choices, different builds, where I think's gonna be good in certain raid bosses, and yeah. Before I get into this, I just want to say this is week 2 of the Worthen, so things are subject to change. Builds can get buffed, nerfed, um, but and this is mostly my opinion. But yeah. So let's get into it. All right. So starting off with our stat weights, uh, if we want to prioritize agility, then for secondary stats, it's going to be mastery equals verse, then crit, and then lastly, haste. Our mastery increases the damage done by our finishing moves by whatever percentage our mastery is. And then when you're gearing, try to not have as much haste as possible. Um, Haste doesn't really do much for us. You'd much rather have the stats put into either verse or mastery, or even grit. Yeah, haste just isn't as worth it for us. It's not a bad stat. It's not the best stat. Yeah. So this is late morning me here. I forgot to mention what our tier set does. So yeah, our tier set. Our tier set is going to be Symbols of Death increases the damage of your next Secret Technique by 20%, and 4 set is Secret Technique increases the damage of your other and finishing moves by 16% for 7 seconds. This set's completely passive. It's just going to incentivize pressing your Secret Technique as soon as you press Symbols. You don't want to be waiting on Secret Technique to come off cooldown when you have Symbols of Death off cooldown. And yeah, pretty much that's gonna be it. The other part of it is just gravy on top of that, you know? It's gonna increase the damage of your Eviscerate, your Black Powder, your Ruptures, your everything else. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And you will see later on in the video, you'll see this trinket pop. This is going to be our best unused trinket. For our trinkets, this is going to be our best in slot. This is the one you want to get the most. Treacherous Transmitter, basically, you'll use it, and one of 3 things will happen. Either you'll get this one, where you have to jump 3 times, and then you'll get a bunch of agility, or you'll get an orb you have to run into. It always spawns off in this section, or there'll be a little like portal device, a little section you have to stand in. You stand there for a little bit, and then you'll get your primary stat. That'll give us a nice boost in primary stat when we go into our burst. We like primary stat. This is our 3rd best trinket from raid. Actually, it is our 4th. Now that I've rechecked the trinket tier list, it is our 4th best. Essentially, what this does is that while standing still, you gain stacking agility, and then while moving, you get your highest secondary stat. In my case, it's versatility. Your second best trinket, at least of right now, current tuning, is the Mad Queen's Mandate, which is another on-use trinket. This one right here. Tick was rightfully yours, gorging on your target's essence to deal 3.4 million shadow damage and healing you for some amount of health over 2 seconds. Damage and healing based on the target's missing health could be reduced by 60% if this effect kills the target. So this is going to be our 2nd best in slot. Apparently we will use this after our Symbols of Death. We use it during our Symbols of Death as Trickster. And then you'll use it during Lingering Darkness when you play it with Deathstalker. And then when you're using, if you're using both Treacherous Transmitter and the Mad Queen's Mandate, you'll want to use the Transmitter first, the Mandate second. Next best trinket going down the list will be from Kevesa. It'll be the Void Reaper's Contract. It'll be a it's mostly just a passive trinket that does damage. it has a high chance to do damage, and yeah, simple. I think overall this is probably gonna be what I'm gonna go for, what I'm gonna aim for. These two trinkets, just having one active and one passive is pretty nice. A lot less to think about than two actives. Like technically this is an active, but it's essentially a passive. From dungeons, best dungeon trinket is going to be, if I can open up the window, the Deadeye Spyglass. Attacks have a chance to mark their targets as dead ahead. Attacking the target grants critical strike for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. After that, second best currently from dungeon will be Empowering Crystal of Invigorating. Equip spells and abilities have a chance to lose an nascent empowerment from the crystal, increasing random secondary step by an amount for 20 seconds. Third one is going to be Bottled Flayed Toxin from Necrotic Wake. I believe that's a Marth. Yep. Right here. Use coat your weapons in Flayed Toxin for an hour, giving your attacks a high chance to inflict nature damage. Make sure to reference Wellhead or Icy Veins for any changes, but as of right now, as of the 20th of September, my birthday, this is accurate. So, bye. See you later. Oh, yeah, before we start looking at the talents and stuff, I forgot to mention what tier set you want. So we want, ideally, our best in slot tier set pieces are going to be our hands, shoulders, chest, and legs. We don't care about the stats on the headpiece, but obviously, get your 4 set first, and then worry about optimizing your stats after that. Alright, cool. That's, I think that's all. Yeah, cool. I'll see you later. Bye. There. I'll see you in the past, future. Bye. Alright, so I also forgot to talk about consumables. So, for your main weapon damage, ideally you want this enchantment on your weapons. It is kind of pricey now since it's only week 2, and people are playing Race to the World first stuff, but I believe these will go down in price at least a little bit in the coming weeks once it comes to an end. Another option is Stonebound Artistry. It's slightly cheaper, and this just gives you mastery on a chance, or a chance to give you mastery. Your back enchant is going to be Chant of Winged Grace. Gives you avoidance and reduces fall damage. Another alternative is Whisper of Silken Avoidance. Pretty affordable right now, at least compared to the other one. For your chest enchantment, Crystalline Radiance is going to be what you want to go for. For your bracers, you want to get Armored Avoidance. For your legs, you want the Stormbound Armor Kit, because it gives you primary stat and agility, or sorry, it gives you agility and it gives you stamina. Alternatively, you can go for dual layered armor kits. They just give you slightly less agility. For your feet, Defender's March, increasing your stamina. You don't really need this, but if you want to kit yourself out, then that's what you'd use. And then for your rings, if you want to go for the Cursed Enchants, Cursed Mastery is what you want to go for. Although these prices are absurd now, so, and the effect isn't that crazy to me. It's okay. Otherwise, second option for cursed enchants would be Cursed Critical Strike. Again, I'm not really much of a fan of these. I'd rather just get the Radiant version. Radiant Mastery. Obviously 315 compared to 390 is less, but you don't lose your secondary stat. and these are going to be probably more affordable. And then Radiant Versatility for another alternative for your ring enchants. Right, and that's going to be it for consumables. Yep. I want to preface this section where I talk about our damage windows and our cooldowns by saying that I have a trinket that changes my stats. So when I go over here and I hover over, let's say, Secret Technique, and you see the damage numbers changing, that's due to a trinket I got. So that's not an actual thing that Sub has, it's just the trinket. Alright, what is Sub Rogue? Sub Rogue is a spec that relies on cooldown reduction and certain cooldown windows, essentially. Sub Rogue has a main burst window and a minor burst window. Major burst window is going to be when you have Shadow Blades, Flagellation, Symbols of Death, and Shadow Dance, as well as Secret Technique. And your minor damage windows are going to be whenever you have Symbols of Death, Shadow Dance, and Secret Technique up. So let's go ahead and get into all those abilities that I just mentioned. Alright, so Shadow Blades. It's a 2-minute cooldown. Essentially, all your weapon attacks will deal 20% additional damage as Shadow, and then it'll cause your combo point generating abilities to generate full combo points for 20 seconds. Next up, Flagellation. You do a little bit of initial damage, and then for the next 12 seconds after you press the button, each combo point that you spend will stack up and grant you a mastery bonus, persisting for an additional 12 seconds after the first 12 seconds. So 24 total seconds of Flagellation. The first 12 are spent gaining the stacks. The last 12 are just maintaining whatever you got during the first half. Alright, so after Shadow Blades and Flagellation, we have Symbols of Death. Symbols of Death is a 30-second cooldown base. I have a talent that reduces that cooldown right now. And it grants you 40 energy as soon as you press the button and increase your damage by 10% for 10 seconds. After that, we have Shadow Dance, and this is the main this is your main damage window. Shadow Dance windows are... This is your damage, right? So it allows the use of stealth abilities and grants all combat benefits of stealth for 8 seconds, and increases damage by 30%. Damage isn't, like, the effect of Shadow Dance is not broken from taking damage or attacking, so let me see here. This is my normal unstealth bar. This is my stealth bar. You can see that I have Shadow Strike on my stealth bar. It requires stealth. I'll use it, and then because I have a talent called Subterfuge, I can still use it. Whenever that ends, I'll have Backstab, and I can't use it no longer, right? And since I'm in combat, I can't re-enter stealth, but if I use Shadow Dance, I have the ability to use Shadow Strike again until it ends, right? Yeah, so your main burst windows are going to be when you have Flagellation, Symbols of Death, Shadow Blades, Shadow Dance, and Secret Technique up. And then outside of that, your windows are going to be when you have Symbols of Death, Shadow Dance, and Secret Technique up. Next, let's talk about our finishers. Alright, so our main finisher is Secret Technique. Secret Technique, it's a minute cooldown base. It has a lot of damage in an AoE. This is where most of our damage comes from. The cooldown of this ability gets reduced by 1 second for every combo point that we spend. So that's kind of where the whole cooldown reduction gameplay comes in with Secret Technique and Shadow Dance. Shadow Dance also has something similar with Deepening Shadows, where our finishing moves reduces the remaining cooldown on Shadow Dance by 0.5 seconds per combo point spent. So when we use a 7 combo point finisher, it reduces our Shadow Dance cooldown by 3.5 seconds. And you can see how this, along with Secret Technique, kind of combine and leads to a nice, like, I guess, synergy, like a reward for spending combo points. So yeah, Alright, so our next finisher after Secret Technique is going to be Eviscerate. Eviscerate deals a lot of single target damage, and this is your main single target filler finisher. Alright, then our next finisher is going to be Black Powder. Black Powder is our AoE finisher. We'll use this, I believe you use Black Powder you start using Black Powder instead of Eviscerate on 3 or more targets. I'm going to have an asterisk on that as we start talking to our hero talents. But just know that Black Powder is our AoE finisher. Our single target spenders now, or single target generators, sorry. Shadow Strike, this is the one we want to prioritize. It requires stealth, so it's only able to be used inside of our subterfuge windows, which is right here. So as soon as we exit stealth, we can use our stealth abilities for 6 seconds. Also, as we saw earlier, we can use our stealth abilities during Shadow Dance. So this is how we're going to be able to use Shadow Strike. Shadow Strike does a lot more damage than our other single target finisher, Backstab. As you can see with my gear, it's 142,000 compared to 43,000. So a lot more damage. It's a little interesting because, as you can see here, from here I can't use Shadow Strike, but as I get a little closer, I will automatically teleport behind the target. It works no matter what, as long as you're within the 25-yard range of the target. If you're inside melee range, you're not going to teleport, so don't worry. It's not going to start teleporting you if you step a foot out, you know. It's not that finicky. Alright, next is Backstab. Talked about it a little bit. Backstab is just a combo point generator. Next, we have Shuriken Storm. It is our AoE generator. Unlike Backstab that only generates 1 combo point guaranteed, Shuriken Storm generates 1 combo point per target hit. So if you can hit 5 targets, you generate 5 combo points. If you hit 7 targets, you generate 7 combo points guaranteed. So you pretty much covered everything. The only other abilities that I really want to mention is Shuriken Toss. Shuriken Toss is only really used when you want to generate a combo point at range. Really, you don't need to use it very often. The main use I see for it is if you're trying to reset a boss, you will Shuriken Toss, get in combat, then you'll vanish, and then the boss will reset. It's kind of finicky, a little bit. The boss has to actually be aggroed on you before you vanish. So, yeah. Alright, so now that we talked about our core kit, let's go ahead and talk about the maintenance abilities. So, the first one I'm going to talk about is Rupture. It's basically just a dot. It lasts longer per combo point spent. And, yeah, it just does bleed damage. It's cool. Pretty simple. The next one is Slice and Dice. I believe this is the last one, too. So yeah, Slice and Dice. It increases your attack speed by 50%. I have a talent that increases it by an extra 10%, so it's a little misleading here. Depending on how many combo points spent is how long the duration of Slice and Dice lasts. But we also have a passive over here called Cut to the Chase, which says that whenever you cast Eviscerate, it's over here, the duration of Slice and Dice will be extended by up to 3 seconds per combo point spent. So as you can see here, go ahead and generate some combo points, cast Slice and Dice. You see up here I have 37 seconds. And I'll go ahead and cast an Eviscerate. It'll go up to 44, right? But again, I think it goes up to a maximum of 59. Okay, so 54 is the max that Slice and Dice can go up to. But, okay, cool. Alright, so now that we went over the main abilities that Sub has, I'm going to go over the more passive nodes and start getting to the actual talent tree itself. So the first thing we need to understand is Shadow Techniques. This passive, essentially, whenever you attack, you have a chance to generate some energy and store a combo point up to 14. And then attacks that generate combo points can expend those stored combo points to generate additional combo points for you up to your maximum. So essentially how this works, it's a little wordy kind of. Essentially, when I auto attack this target, I'll get stacks of a buff called Shadow Techniques. You can see here I got 3 stored right here. Whenever I cast Backstab, which is guaranteed to reward me 1 combo point, it'll add on the amount of combo points here. So you see I have 5 stacks here, plus the 1. I should get 6 combo points from casting Backstab. And you can see here, I got 6 combo points from Backstab. And essentially that's it. Slice and Dice kind of feeds into this. So with Slice and Dice, you attack faster, which means you have a higher... you stack up your Shadow Technique faster just because you auto-attack faster, right? It all kind of feeds into each other. You want to be auto-attacking the boss. Auto-attacks are important. And yeah. Alright, so there's a few talents that buff Shadow Techniques. Here, Improve Shadow Techniques basically just increases your energy that you get from a Shadow Technique procs by 3. Normally, you get 4 energy back. This one gives you 7, right? As you can see here, 7 energy. Then the next one, this capstone right here, Shadowcraft. While you have Symbols of Death active, your Shadow Techniques triggers 40% more frequently, stores 1 additional combo point, and finishing moves can use these sort of combo points when they're enough to refresh your full combo points. So essentially, when you have 7 or more combo points, because we have 7 max combo points due to Secret Stratagem and Deeper Stratagem. When you have 7 or more combo points, which I have tracked here with this Weakauras, your next finisher will instantly refill your combo points. So, alright, so I have 13 combo points stored. I'm going to use Symbols of Death. And then the next finisher that I use will instantly give me max combo points again. And I had another 7 there, so it did it again. So, with that capstone right here, you're able to chain together finishers after finisher. So, that's pretty important when you want to go, let's say you have 7 stacks of your Shadow Techniques. You press your Secret Technique, and then you can instantly go into an Eviscerate. So right here, if I go into like a window, right, I generate my combo points. I have Shadow Techniques. Press that. I press my Secret Technique, then I can instantly press an Eviscerate. As you see here, Secret Technique, Eviscerate. So, on the last topic of energy and combo point management is Relentless Strikes. Our finishing combo points, our finishing moves generate 5 energy per combo point spent. So, when we use an ability like Eviscerate, it costs 35 energy. If we use a 7 combo point Eviscerate, we get 35 energy back. So see here, I'm at max combo points. You can see I'm at 50 or so energy. I go back, and I basically am fully refunded the cost of Eviscerate. I guess all of our finishers cost 30 or less energy besides... Oh yeah. So yeah, all of our finishers cost 30 or less energy. Or 35 or less energy. So on every Eviscerate, every Black Powder, you'll get your full refund back. If you use it at max combo points. If you use a max combo point Secret Technique, which you should, you'll get 5 energy refunded, actually. And if you use max combo point Slice and Dice, you'll gain 10 energy. So, yeah. I don't know think about that. It's just a nice passive that we have. Cool. Alright, so onto the optional and situational abilities. So, first one's going to be Gloomblade. Gloomblade replaces your Backstab. It essentially just does more damage, and instead of doing physical damage, Gloomblade will do shadow damage. This kind of synergizes with this node right here, Dark Brew, which I'll talk about a little later. But essentially, when you take Gloom Blade, your main single target generator will deal more damage, and yeah. Next ability you want to talk about is Sepsis. Sepsis is on a 1.5 minute cooldown, just like Flagellation. Essentially, when you use it, you'll put a dot on the enemy for 10 seconds, and then you'll gain one use of a stealth ability. And if the target survives the 10-second dot, then you get a burst of damage, and then you can use another stealth ability for 10 seconds. And then if your target dies within the dot's 10-second lifespan, you'll get the cooldown refunded by 30 seconds. Yeah, not much to really say about Sepsis. You mostly just use this on cooldown, and don't really have to think about it that much. Alright, before we move on to the finisher-related talents, let's go ahead and talk about Find Weakness. Find Weakness says that our stealth abilities reveal a flaw in our target's defenses, causing all of our attacks to bypass 30% of that enemy's armor for 10 seconds. Essentially, when you use a Shadow Strike, a Cheap Shot, I believe that's pretty much it. From stealth, you're guaranteed to apply Find Weakness, and there's certain talents like this one and this one where they grant you an increased chance to proc Find Weakness. As you can see here, improve Backstab. Backstab gets a 15% increased critical strike chance, and then whenever you're behind your target, Backstab critical strikes now also expose a flaw in their defenses, applying Find Weakness. I think this is probably bugged because you can apply Find Weakness from the front. See, your Backstab critical strikes and apply Find Weakness. Likewise, with the other talent, Improved Shuriken Storm, it's basically the same thing as Improved Backstab, granting your Shuriken Storm an additional 50% chance to crit, and then the critical strikes of Shuriken Storm apply Find Weakness for 10 seconds. You can see this. Just cast a few Shuriken Storms, and it'll apply Find Weakness. Right there. Cool. Alright, so now that I've explained Find Weakness, we can go on to the finisher-related talents. The first one I want to highlight is Shadowed Finishers. Eviscerate and Black Powder deal an additional 30% damage as Shadow to targets with their Find Weakness active. Essentially, this is just a passive. You don't have to really think about it. As you're doing your rotation, you're going to be doing extra Shadow damage. Cool. Veil Touch, another easy one. Your ability to deal 5% increased magic damage. I want to note here that magic damage includes things like nature damage, like Sepsis and your poisons. They do nature damage. As well as shadow damage. Shadow damage is also considered nature. However, it does not affect your bleeds, and bleeds in general are considered physical attacks, physical damage over time. And then Deeper Daggers, Eviscerate, and Black Powder increase your shadow damage dealt by 8% for 8 seconds. This will just happen naturally. And then the last one that really deals with finishers, Finality. Eviscerate, Rupture, and Black Powder increase the damage of the next use of the same finishing move by 15%. It's a 2-point node, so it goes up to 30%. Alright, now onto stuff that buffs your Symbols of Death. Right here, Swift Death. Probably noticed this earlier. Symbols of Death has 5%, 5-second ruse cooldown. This just helps you get more uptime on your Symbols of Death. It really goes along really nicely with Inevitability, which says that Backstab and Shadow Strike extend the duration of your Symbols of Death by 0.5 seconds. So, essentially just helping you bridge the gap between, and reduce the downtime of Symbols of Death. Yeah, these nodes, they are just passive increases to either your critical strike chance or your haste. We don't really care about haste right now. I could see you maybe wanting to use this if you run a more bleed-oriented build, where you'd want more haste to take your bleeds faster, because haste affects how often your damage over time effects trigger. So like say you're going heavy into like Sepsis, if they added another damage over time effect, maybe something like that. That could be nice. But for most of the time, you'd probably want to stick with Symbols of Death, increasing your critical strike chance, or just not taking it at all. That too. All right. So after that, we have the Rotten, another Capstone talent. After using Symbols of Death, your next 2 attacks that generate combo points deal 35% increased damage and are guaranteed to critically strike. This essentially, you could kind of just forget about it. Like, in my opinion, this is mostly just to help your single target. So after you pop your cooldowns, right, you'll pop your Symbols of Death, you'll pop your Shadow Dance, and then in your Shadow Dance, right, you are able to use Shadow Strike. So Shadow Strike, those 2 Shadow Strikes right there do a lot of damage, being buffed by the Rotten. That's mostly how I see this being used. Is mostly just the to buff the damage of your Shadow Strike and single target. However, it does say your generating moves, so it does work with Shuriken Storm. It does work with Backstab. However, you're not going to be using it on Backstab. You're gonna be using it inside your cooldowns, inside your Symbols of Death, or sorry, inside your Shadow Dance windows on your Shadow Strikes. All right, that pretty much covers the Symbols of Death talents. Let's go into the Shadow Dance talents. All right, so this one doesn't really matter too much. Just whenever you enter or Stealth or Shadow Dance, your next Cheap Shot is free. Cheap Shot is a 4-second stun that gives you a combo point. It's pretty nice. Next, we have Shadow Focus. Shadow Focus is abilities cost 5% less energy while Stealth or Shadow Dance is active. So yeah, just more energy helps with our energy economy, and yeah. Fade to Nothing. This is a defensive node. So either you can choose to have Vanish gives you a shield for 6 seconds, absorbing damage equal to 80% of your maximum health, or you can choose Fade to Nothing, which just gives you increased movement speed and reduces damage taken by 10% for 8 seconds after gaining Stealth, Vanish, or Shadow Dance. And yeah, it's just kind of a passive damage reduction thing. You don't have to deal about that. This is a pretty important talent. You should take this in 99.9% of cases. Basically just gives you, instead of 6 seconds, you get an 8-second Shadow Dance window. And then Double Dance, you're always going to take this. It gives you a second charge of Shadow Dance. So that's where your second charge comes in. Deepening Shadows. This is part of the engine that helps make sub feel really nice to play, in my opinion. As you can see here, finishing moves reduce the main cooldown on Shadow Dance by 0.5 seconds per combo point spent. So when you use that max combo points, you get 3.5 seconds reduced cooldown on your Shadow Dance. And as you recall from earlier, Secret Technique is reduced by 1 second for every combo point you spend. So essentially, for every combo point you spend, you get 7 seconds off, or every, let's say, for every max combo point finisher you use will reduce 7 seconds off of Secret Technique and 3.5 seconds off of Shadow Dance. Alright, after that, we have Lingering Shadow. After Shadow Dance ends, Backstab deals an additional 50% damage as Shadow, fading by 2.8% per second. Now, this is not that important. Backstab isn't typically like the majority of our damage. It's mostly Shadow Strike, Secret Technique, obviously like Shadow Blades, things like that. Like Backstab isn't that important, so buffing it's not the best. It's okay. Dark Shadow is highly important. You're always taking this talent node. This is the talent node that allows Shadow Dance to increase our damage by 30%. So without this, Shadow Dance windows aren't really a they're still a thing, but they're not as important as they are with this talent. And then lastly, we have Danse Macabre. Shadow Dance increases the damage of your attacks that generate your spend combo points by 6%, increased by an additional 6% for each different attack used. So how this plays out is whenever you use Shadow Dance, you'll get a stack of a Danse Macabre stack. And then for each ability generator or spender that you use, you'll get increased damage stacking up. Here, I have my Shadow Dance macro to a Backstab. So let me show you here. So right here, Shadow Dance and Backstab. This will guarantee or give me 2 stacks of Danse Macabre whenever I use my Shadow Dance. I'll go into this a little more when I actually talk about macros and stuff. Yeah, basically you just increase your damage based on the abilities that you use, generators and spenders. So I do it again. Grab 2 stacks. I use a Secret Technique 3. I use Shadow Strike 4. I used Coup de Grace. It was 5, and then you get the picture. Oh, and also, kind of important, Dark Brew. So, while I was talking earlier about maybe having use for warning signs if you have a build with like sepsis and other damage over time effects, Dark Brew is a really nice ability. It says that your attacks deal nature or bleed damage. Now do shadow damage instead, and then all of your shadow damage is increased by 10%. So, essentially, your ruptures that you apply, or bleed, right? They'll get converted into shadow damage, and then shadow damage, your shadow damage will be increased by 10%. This works really well and kind of segues nice into our optional AoE talents. Replicating Shadows. Rupture deals an additional 20% damage as shadow and applies to one additional nearby enemy. So how this works with Dark Brew is the original damage that was dealt with Rupture will be increased by 10%, and then you'll deal an additional 20% damage as additional shadow damage, and that will also get buffed by Dark Brew. Yeah, it's really good in Myth Plus, and yeah. Also, speaking of Mythic Plus, another core AoE talent is our Shuriken Tornado. Shuriken Tornado says it's a 1-minute cooldown. You focus intently, then release a Shuriken Storm every second for the next 4 seconds. So how this works is you generate a Shuriken Storm, as it says. So it'll go like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then those Shuriken storms that it fires will not use any of your energy, so you'll be free to cast Black Powders, you'll be free to cast Ruptures with the combo points, maybe Secret Technique. It's a really nice ability. It can be kind of clunky, because if you're not running these talents, Vigor and Subtlety, 60 energy is a lot for sub, because typically you are only dealing with 100 energy, and so it can be awkward in the energy management side of things, but it's still a good talent, and I would recommend it, especially on certain fights where you know that like Tindral was a perfect fight for Shuriken Tornado, because as soon as the roots came out, you were able to Shuriken Tornado. You would have enough combo points to Secret Technique, and then fill in with a bunch of Black Powders, and you just annihilate all the roots near you and your allies, and you just shoot up in the damage. It's very nice, very good talent. Although I haven't been running it this season, it is still a really good option. I suggest you try it out and just see how it feels. And yeah, over here. Goremaw's Bite, I believe, is mostly just a PvP talent. Basically just deals some damage, some shadow damage, and then our next three finishing moves cost no energy. And then Goremaw's Bite by itself awards 3 combo points, a 45-second cooldown. You can kind of think of it as a Echoing Reprimand. Echoing Reprimand is on the same 45-second cooldown. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on Echoing Reprimand because Subtlety doesn't really use it. But you can read it and... yeah. Oh, so this is huge. Okay. So, this talent's being removed in a future patch, but for right now, is our go-to Ray talent setup. Invigorating Shadowdust is a 2-point talent node. Vanish reduces the remaining cooldown of your other rogue abilities by 15 seconds per talent, so at max is 30 seconds. This is huge. When it says other rogue abilities, it includes basically everything. It includes Shadow Blades, Fladge, Sepsis, Secret Technique. It'll reduce the cooldown of Evasion, Blind, Shadow Step, Crimson Vial, Sprint, everything. You'll primarily use it in alignment with certain boss window. Like, so say, a really good example of this was on Smolderon. There's a phase on Smolderon where you would be able to collect orbs. These orbs increase your damage done, and because you run Shadow Dust, the timings aligned very well so that you were able to basically have all your cooldowns come back up in the middle of this increased damage phase. So you were able to dump your cooldowns, and then in the increased damage phase, you had all your cooldowns back up again. I'll go into the actual rotation with Shadow Dust and how I like to use it a little bit later. But yeah. Okay, so, now that I basically got all the prerequisite knowledge of Subtlety, and for those of you who skipped the last part, or skipped around, welcome. This is where the actual guide begins. Yeah, so here. I'm going to go ahead and talk about our talent trees, or our hero talents. So, Subtlety has access to 2 different hero talents, Deathstalker and Trickster. Trickster is, in my opinion, the go-to sub-build, sub-hero talent. Deathstalker is nice, but Deathstalker is primarily single-target focused, whereas Trickster is single target, and it has a lot of like AoE synergies. Trickster is the outlaw rogue sub rogue combination, whereas Deathstalker is the assassination rogue and sub rogue combination. I'm gonna go into Trickster first. Trickster revolves around this passive right here, Unseen Blade. Essentially, your Backstab and Shadow Strike also strike with an Unseen Blade, dealing some damage, and then targets struck are phased for 10 seconds. Phased enemies take 5% more damage from you and cannot parry your attacks. This effect can only occur once every 20 seconds, and yeah, so basically how that works is whenever you use Backstab or you use Shadow Strike, you see the little animation there. Yeah, right there, the little line across the side. That is the Unseen Blade proc. And then going down, essentially, attacks that generate combo points, so your generators deal 25% increased damage, critical strike damage to phase targets. I'm going to ignore these choice nodes for now. I'll talk about them after we round up the entire kit. Secret Technique has a 10% reduced cooldown, so I see right here that it's a 54-second cooldown, because it's a 60-second base, and then 10% of 60 is 6, so 54. And then allows your next 2 strikes of Unseen Blade to ignore this cooldown, or to ignore its cooldown. So, as soon as you use Secret Technique, you can have 2 Unseen Blade procs. That's good. It allows you to stack up the next talent, Flawless Form. Flawless Form says that your Unseen Blade and Secret Technique increase the damage of your finishing moves by 3% for 12 seconds, and then multiple applications may overlap. Yeah, so just increasing your finishing move damage. It's basically like your Mastery. I'm not entirely sure the interaction between your Mastery and Flawless Form. I'm not sure if they're multiplicative or if they're additive or whatever, but just know that they can overlap. And then right here, Secret Technique applies phase to any target struck. So there's not just you can apply Unseen Blade. You can apply phased to multiple targets than just your target you're hitting, or the Backstab and Shadow Strike. And then right here, Nimble Flurry, probably the most like game-changing of this entire talent tree. The thing that really sets it apart is Nimble Flurry. You essentially become an outlaw rogue. Your attacks, Backstab, Shadow Strike, and Eviscerate also strike up to 7 additional nearby targets for 50% of normal damage while Flawless Form is active. So, whenever you use a Secret Blade, whenever you use the Unseen Blade or Secret Technique, you get Flawless Form. But basically, each of these have their own separate stack, countdown, whatever, and as long as you have Flawless Form, you are able to AoE cleave your auto attacks, your Eviscerate, your Backstab, Shadow Strike. Yeah, it's just a lot of really convenient and easy cleave, and this is what sets the Trickster apart from Deathstalker, in my opinion. And yeah, I'm gonna stop gushing about Nimble Flurry real quick, and we can go to the last capstone node here. Coup de grace. So after 4 strikes with the Unseen Blade, your next Eviscerate will be performed as a coup de grace, functioning as if it had consumed 5 additional combo points. And if the primary target is phased, you gain 5 stacks of Flawless Form. So essentially, every Unseen Blade that you trigger will give you a stack of Escalating Blade. At 4, you will replace your Eviscerate with a coup de grace. And to help you reach there faster, you have this talent right here, where after you use Secret Technique, your next 2 either Backstabs or Shadow Strikes will proc an Unseen Blade, right? So you can attack, you can proc 3 pretty fast. Yeah, I'll just demonstrate that right now. So I'm at 1 right now. See you right there. I'm gonna Shadow Strike, build combo points, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and send a Secret Technique, and then I'll Backstab. So 1, 2. Now I'm at 4. You see right here, my Eviscerate became a coup de grace. Now I can use that, and then there you go. That's essentially it. Alright, so that's pretty much Trickster. Going over the actual choice nodes though. We have our first node right here. This is a defensive node. So either you can have Feint reduce the damage taken from area of effects attacks by an additional 10%, which is massive. This is really huge. This allows your Feint to reduce the AoE by 50%. So yeah, you got that, and then you also have Smoke, which is 5% reduced damage from phase targets. This is probably going to be the go-to. They're both really good, but you're going to have more consistent uptime on Smoke than you are going to have with Mirrors. But again, 50% reduced AoE damage is huge. The first actual damage choice node is going to be right here, 1000 Cuts or Flicker Strike. At current tuning, 1000 Cuts is better in every way. Essentially, instead of being a 50% increased attack speed boost with Size and Dice, it's 60. You get 10% additional attack speed, right? And then also gives your auto attacks a chance to refresh your opportunity to strike with an Unseen Blade. So not only are your auto attacks giving you energy and giving you combo points with shadow techniques, but they're also giving you chances to reproc Unseen Blade, which is giving you stacks of Flawless Form, which is giving you AoE cleave damage, which is giving you like increased damage when you're finishing moves, and it's nice. It's so good. It's just it all comes together really nice. Like I don't know, when you compare that to Flicker Strike, taking damage from AoE effect while Feint is active or dodging while evasion is active refreshes your opportunity to strike with Unseen Blade. Effect can only occur once every 5 seconds. 1,000 clusters is the way to go. And then the next choice node is So Tricky and Don't Be Suspicious. From the plus, So Tricky is going to be really useful. Basically just increases Trickster trade's threat reduction to an hour. And then the other node is Blind and Shroud of Concealment. Blind and Shroud of Concealment have 10% reduced cooldown. Pickpocket and Stab have 10 yard increased range. It depends. Like, it's situationally better. It really just depends. And then the last choice node we have here, No Scruples and Cloud Cover. Finishing moves have 10% increased chance to critically strike phase targets. It's just free damage, basically. Just free passive damage, you don't have to really think about it. Whereas Cloud Cover turns Distract, normally a move you don't really, or an ability you don't really use very often, into like a DPS cooldown. But you only get 10 seconds in your DPS window, and it's like increase the cooldown from I think a minute, or no, from 30 seconds to 90. That's, I don't know. You know, it's pretty much Trickster. All right, since we're on the topic of Trickster right now, and we went through all the talent nodes, all the hero talents. I'm gonna go ahead and recommend a few builds using Trickster, right? So this build right here that you've been looking at this entire time, this is pretty much just the sit it and forget it Trickster build. This will work in single target, it'll work in AoE, it'll work in everything, really. I really like this build. It is a Shadowdust build. If you don't like Shadowdust, I have a Dark Brew version of the build that I'll show. But yeah, essentially how this works is you're using Without a Trace to get a second charge of Vanish. You're using Cold Blood. I believe we always use Cold Blood, and we always use Deeper Stratagem. The only real choice that you have as sub is whether or not you use Subterfuge and Without a Trace. And in that case, the only real choice that you have is whether or not you go with Thistlety, which I do like Thistlety, but you do need you do need Without a Trace when you're doing the Shadowdust build. It just allows for so many different like combat like tricks, essentially. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and go over some pretty decent macros to have for Sub Rogue before we actually go into the rotation. Just to give you a little knowledge on what I'm actually using. So for my Shadowdance, like I said earlier, I have it macroed. I have a Backstab shadowed into my Shadowdance. This is mostly just to add another stack of Danse Macabre, so I don't have to have a separate keybind for Backstab. But you don't need it. You really don't even need to have the Backstab in there. It's just to use a different ability for the extra Macabre stack. If you want to use it, you can. It's not very important. You could just use Shower Dance. One very important one that's pretty useful on any rogue spec is this one right here. It's this macro right here. Basically, when I use left mouse button, I apply my instant poison, or right mouse button, it applies my atrophic poison. Copy that there if you want, but you can substitute the atrophic poison or the instant poison for whatever you're playing. So like if you're playing Assassination, you can do that, whatever. Then I have my Cold Blood Secret Technique. macro. I didn't really mention it earlier, but we will macro Cold Blood into Secret Technique. Next, which is the Tricks of the Trade focus macro. You don't need this, but it's helpful sometimes. We've got the Shadow Blades macro. So basically use 13, use my top trinket. You can use 14 if you can do /use 14 for the bottom trinket. The current potion for this season is Temper Potion, so use that. I have that macroed in. And then Shadow Blades at the end, right? Alright, so with this build, right? I'm gonna go ahead and clear all my stuff. Feel free to watch the ability tracker right here above my damage done meter. Rupture, the dot dynamically adjusts to any buffs we have. So, things like this Treacherous Transmitter, and the Symbols of Death and Shadow Dance will automatically adjust the damage of Rupture. Here, I'll go ahead and display that right now. So, go ahead and Rupture. You see this? It's sticking for 3,400. So I brought my Shadow Dance. It goes up to 4,400. Or sorry, 44,000 instead of 34 or 32,000. See it does update based on the buff that the player has. Alright, so I've gotten rid of all my buffs. We've reapplied poisons. Make sure you do that before entering combat, you know. I prefer to have Atrophic and the instant poison. Alright, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with a Shadow Strike. We're gonna go into a Slice and Dice. We don't care how many combo points we spend because of Cut to the Chase. When we press the Eviscerate, it's going to extend our Slice and Dice. We use it once, we don't have to worry about any of that again. Then we'll, so Shadow Strike, Slice and Dice, Shadow Strike, Shadow Strike. Then we're going to Flagellation, Rupture. Then we're gonna, I like to do Symbols, Shadow Blades, Shadow Dance. Then Shadow Strike right after all your cooldowns, so that you get max combo points. Then you're gonna send a your macro Cold Blood and Secret Technique, and then from there, you're just gonna eviscerate if you can, depending on how many combo points you get. You might have to Shadow Strike, you might have to do other things. It's just adapt from there basically, and then yeah. After that, I'll kind of go into the whole Vanish use situation, but here's the opener. Right, so you can see there, I just did a simple opener. I kind of messed up the beginning a little bit. I think I built a little more, but essentially what you're doing is as soon as you press your Secret Technique, so you're gonna do your Shadow Strike, you're gonna Slice and Dice, you're going to Shadow Strike, Flagellation, Rupture, then you're gonna go Symbols of Death, Shadow Blades, Shadow Dance, Shadow Strike into Secret Technique. Once you do that, you will instantly press Vanish. This will reduce 30 seconds off of Secret Technique, instantly give you back Symbols of Death, and then give you 30 seconds off of Shadow Dance. And then from there, you're just gonna spam Eviscerates and Shadow Strikes until you get to very low uptime on, or until you run out of Shadow Dance. And then at that point, you will reapply you're basically trying to extend your Shadow Dance and Symbols of Death window and then spam your synco technique inside of that window. So you probably have to rewind the video a little bit because I wasn't really able to explain while doing it, but essentially, your goal is to maximize the uptime of Shadowdance and Symbols of Death. This means that you'll have rolling Shadowdance and rolling Symbols of Death usage. And I will go ahead and re-show you that again one more time with whenever I get my second Vanish charge. Alright, so here we go. So I messed up a little bit there, but it's fine. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you need to go back and watch the video, go ahead. It's pretty fast paced, but essentially, you're just trying to maintain up. When you go back and watch, just look at the uptime I have on Shadowdance and Symbols of Death on my buff bar. So like you see right here, like watch all these timers and yeah, and that should help you out. It's not very intuitive, I would say. Like, but it's pretty simple to get the hang of whenever you just practice a few more times. And one of the things I want to actually show or showcase is this build is really good in AoE as well. I'm gonna only wait till one Vanish charge, but because we have Nimble Flurry, you'll see that without changing any talents, I do a lot of AoE damage as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and wait 20 seconds for that, and I'll be back. Alright, so the opener for AoE is gonna be pretty much the exact same thing as it was in single target. With this build, you're not using replicating shadows, so I don't think it's beneficial to apply all of your ruptures to these targets. I think it probably better just maintain it on the Perennial Mob and then cleave off of the others. Yeah, so let's just do it again. So it's the same opener that I did the other two times, and just gonna be showing it how it works in AoE. Ready? You see, if I had another Vanish charge there, I would have used it. But I don't, so... And you can see there, nothing changed in my rotation, besides me messing up buttons. And you can see there, Nimble Flurry did a lot of damage, right? Alright, I guess I'll show you the Deathstalker one, while I wait for Vanish to come back up. So, essentially, with Deathstalker, how Deathstalker works in comparison to Trickster is Deathstalker's mark. Essentially, whenever you Shadow Strike from Stealth or Shadow Dance, you apply 3 stacks of Deathstalker's mark to your target, and then when you spend 5 or more combo points on attacks against the mark target, you consume a mark, dealing some instant plague damage, and then increase the damage of the next Backstab or Shadow Strike by 50%. And then you can only have one target marked at a time. How this will work is it'll go into stealth, and then you'll Shadow Strike, and you see this right here. They are marked by my Deathstalker's mark. And then once you use finishing moves on that on the marked target that consume at least 5 combo points, And you do that 3 times. You move all the stacks. You'll trigger the capstone, Darkest Night, and then this says whenever you consume the final Deathstalker's mark from a target or the target dies, you gain 40 energy in your next Eviscerate cast with maximum combo points. Has to be maximum combo points, Eviscerate. That's pretty important. Otherwise you don't get anything out of your capstone. So maximum combo point Eviscerate is guaranteed to critical strike, deals 60% additional damage, and applies 3 stacks of Deathstalker's mark, repeating the cycle. So essentially, without reading anything else, all you're gonna do from stealth, Shadow Strike, you get a mark, build up to at least 5 combo points. You can just send it, right? And then once you get to here, let's slice some dice. We can go a little faster with the combo point generation. Last marks used, I have Darkest Night right here. So my next Eviscerate, use that max combo points, we'll reapply the marks, and that's basically it. So with this, you're doing a little bit more, it's wholly single target damage. It doesn't really do, it does some cleave, which I'll go into in a second, but that's the mark, that's what it looks like. Kind of cool, but yeah. Alright, so going through the actual other talent notes. Clue the Witnesses. Next Shuriken Storm, after applying Deathstalker's mark, deals additional plague damage and generates 1 additional combo point. I believe that that applies in an AoE. Yeah, so you apply your thing, and the next one you do here, proc Clue the Witnesses, doing a lot of AoE damage. And so that procs every time you reapply your Deathstalker's mark. Then you got Hunt Them Down, which you saw in the detail breakdown. It's essentially just auto attacks against marked targets deal additional plague damage. Then Singular Focus, damage dealt to targets other than your marked target, deal 5% plague damage to your marked target. So essentially, doing all your AoE damage is dealing increased final damage to your target. Next, we have Fatal Intent. Your damaging abilities against targets above 20% health have a very high chance to apply Fatal Intent. When an enemy falls below 20% health, Fatal Intent inflicts some plague damage per stack. So, while you're just dealing damage to your prior target, or I think it actually it doesn't even have to be your prior target, it just any damage to any mob, so I believe your Shuriken Storm should be able to apply that. Yeah, so I have, I believe, yeah, I have, okay, so yeah, you can apply it to multiple targets, it doesn't have to be a marked target. It'll basically, when they get low, it'll just nuke them, basically. Next, Corrupt the Blood. Rupture deals additional plague damage each time it deals damage, stacking up to 10 times, and then Rupture duration increased by 3 seconds. You don't really play around this, but I didn't really talk about it, but this does actually increase your pandemic window for Rupture, which I didn't mention before, but you do want to pandemic your Rupture. Alright, so yeah, the pandemic window for Rupture is 30% duration remaining, so when you go ahead and press Rupture, right, whenever it gets to about 30%, so for me, like right about now, it'll add whatever time on, it'll add the extra time on to the next Rupture, basically. Yeah, so when it's about 30%, you want to reapply your Ruptures, otherwise, don't worry about it. You're good. Yeah, cool. Alright, now we get to the first choice node, Lingering Darkness or Symbolic Victory. Right now, Lingering Darkness is just really better, or really good. I was supposed to say really better, but yeah, Lingering Darkness, go to. After Shadow Blades expires, you gain 30 seconds of 30% increased shadow damage. I don't want to say it smooths out your rotation, but it definitely helps retain some of the power that you get from Shadow Blades. It's really good in single target, a lot better than Symbolic Victory. Symbolic Victory just says that Symbols of Death additionally increases the damage of your next Eviscerate or Black Powder by 15%. And you trigger this a lot, like, you'll trigger it more than Lingering Darkness, but 15% just doesn't really compare to the 30% that you get from Lingering Darkness, even though you are able to practice more, it just doesn't really compare. Alright, now defensive choice node. The go-to option would be bait and switch. I don't know why I'm on Ethereal Cloak, although Ethereal Cloak is nice. If there's any situation in which the extra 2 seconds from Cloak of Shadows, or having 2 extra seconds on Cloak of Shadows is like very important. Like, don't sleep on it. Like it's a good effect. It's just it's very niche compared to bait and switch, which just it makes it that evasion also helps prevent magic damage, and Cloak of Shadows also helps reduce physical damage. The thing to really note here is that evasion reducing magical damage is kind of it's actually a really big deal. There's a lot of magic damage. Most AoE damage is magic damage. Think of just like pulsing like shadow damage or shadow flame damage or whatever from like Farak or something like that. Farak. Having 20% reduced magical damage while you're evading, or just in addition to your like 100% evasion chance, like their dodge chance, I guess. It's really good. Likewise, Cloak of Shadows reducing physical damage isn't as important, but it can still come in handy. It's still useful, and yeah. Next, choice node, Momentum of Despair versus Fall of Blood. I would say if you're gonna use Deathstalker and Mythic Plus, Follow the Blood is probably the better choice to go. If you're running a Dark Brew build, kind of show you the this is what it would these are kind of the talents that you would use on Dark Brew. I'm not gonna actually swap, but those are the Dark Brew. You basically just get rid of the Rotten Shadowdust. You gain this. You gain Replicating Shadows. I believe you take out most of this side. Basically, if you're using Replicating Shadows, this is going to be really good because it's going to be really easy to maintain 3 or more Ruptures. 3 or more enemies having Rupture. And just having a 30% increased damage on Shuriken, Storm, and Black Powder can be really potent in AoE. Also, synergizes pretty well with Singular Focus. Yeah. Whereas Momentum of Despair, if you've critically struck with Shuriken Storm, increases the critical strike chance of Shuriken Storm and Black Powder by 15%, and then critical strike damage increased by 32% for 12 seconds. This is just going to be universally good, especially when you're not taking Replicating Shadows. It's going to be more consistent damage, although it only buffs your critical strike damage, so like it increases your strike chance for Shuriken Storm and Black Powder, which like if you're taking this is pretty decent, right? Yeah, it's not like a just be aware that you do have to crit to get that 30% increased damage. All right, and so Shadewalker. Each time you can, sorry, the last choice node we have here, Shadewalker or Shadow Knight. I think Shadewalker is probably the go-to. It just reduces the cooldown of Shadow Step by 3 seconds. Yeah, I think Shadewalker is probably going to be the go-to. It just reduces the cooldown of Shadow Step by 3 seconds whenever you consume a stack of Deathstalker's Mark. Just a lot more mobility and more overall use than Shadow Knight, which Shadow Knight just allows Shadow of Concealment duration to be increased by 5 seconds. I don't know why I worded it that way. It just increases Shadow of Concealment by 5 seconds, which it can be nice, but it's also situational that you need 20 seconds of stealth. Just keep a note of it. Yeah, cool. Alright, so this is the single target Deathstalker build. I'm gonna go up to the original dummy. and just go ahead and demonstrate the ability or the talent setup. So, same thing like the other one. Except this time you have more of a focus and a need on getting to 5 stacks to reduce the mark and to getting to max combo points whenever you want to reapply the mark. Alright. So, basically same opener. Make sure you reapply your poisons. And let's go. It's gonna be Shadow Strike into Slice and Dice, into Shadow Strike, Flagellation, Rupture, Symbols of Death, Shadow Blades, Shadow Dance. Obviously, your Shadow Blades will pop your Trinket, Ratio, all that pot. Then once you pop all your cooldowns, you'll pop a Shadow Strike into a Secret Technique, into a Vanish, into Eviscerate and Shadow Strike, whatever you get. If you have procs from Shadow Techniques, then you'll use them on Eviscerates. Otherwise, you'll build up with Shadow Strike. Keep doing that until you run out of until your Shadow Dance runs out. Reapply that. Go ahead and press your Secret Technique when it comes up. As long as it's in as long as you have both your Symbols of Death and Shadow Dance up. And yeah, alright, here we go. Alright, messed up a little bit, but, you know, there we go. So while I wait for my cooldowns to come back up, you'll see that I sometimes just, I do it wrong. I have muscle memory of just, popping Fladge into Symbols, Shadow Blades, Shadow Dance, and then Rupturing, and then building up using Secret Technique. You don't want to do that because you waste your first global on Rupture instead of on Secret Technique. Because like if you do it the way I've ingrained into my brain, you have your Shadow Blades running down, you have your Symbols of Death and your Shadow Dance running down, and then you apply your Rupture, and then you have to wait for your GCD to come off. Then you have to wait for Backstab or your Shadow Strike animation, and then you have to wait for your Secret Technique. At that point, you're only like 2 to 3 seconds into your Shadow Dance window. You're not like it's not a huge loss, but it is a damage loss, and it is like it's not optimal. So when you see me do it, know that you shouldn't do that way. It's just I have muscle memory from doing it wrong all this time. So yeah, that PSA out of the way. Yep, I'll cut to when I have my charges back. Hey, Chubb, say hi. Chubbs. Okay, bye, Chubb. EP loaf. Alright, so okay, Intermission is out of there. I'm gonna do it right this time. I'm gonna do my rotation right this time. Let's go. Right, so Right, and that's basically it. Yeah. So yeah, pretty much the only thing left I have to really talk about is the um Mythic Plus build. Let's see if I can't like cheat real quick. Yeah, there we go. If you didn't know, you can swap to another spec to reset one charge of your Vanish if your challenge did into without a trace. But I still need to wait for the first Vanish to come back up. So, all right, cool. So this is the Mythic Plus build that I was testing out earlier. This is gonna be more for, I want to say like, this build is gonna be more centered around maintaining your ruptures. You're not running without trace, you're not running Shadowdance, not running Rotten, but you are taking Finality, you are taking Dark Brew. You're still using Danse Macabre, Shadowcraft. Really the main change that you're doing that actually like occurs is that you're gonna see that your Rupture deals a lot more damage and is a bigger part of this version of sub. Essentially, how you want to treat Thistlety is you want to use Thistlety one whenever you're low on energy, or two, for the mastery increase whenever you're in your cooldowns. Because you're not using Shadowdust, you aren't going to get any Symbols of Death and like all your cooldown resets from using Vanish. So Vanish becomes more of a defensive utility tool, preventing like dropping all your threat. So yeah, you don't have to use it as a. You can use it. You can use it offensively, because it puts you back into stealth. Say you have both Shadow Dance charges off on cooldown, you can Vanish to put yourself back into stealth, so you can use a Shadow Strike. For combo point generation, to help use another finisher to reduce the cooldown on your secret technique and your Shadow Dance. Other than that, it's pretty much just you're gonna go into stealth, you're going to Shadow Strike, you're going to apply your Shadow Strike to get into melee range. Then you're going to Shuriken Storm to get up to max combo points. You're going to start spreading your ruptures. You're gonna do that until every target has your rupture. So depending on your target size, depends on how many times you press rupture. For me, since these are 5 dummies right here, I'm gonna use it 3 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, and then as soon as I do that, I'll go on to my prior target, and then I'll just do the normal rotation. You don't really need to worry about flagellation and then rupture. You can just send all your cooldowns at that point because all of them will have your rupture on. But yeah, you should probably keep mental note of that. Once you put all your cooldowns, you'll pop Thistlety for the energy and the mastery increase, and then you'll go to town. Just doing your normal rotation. Which will consist of popping your secret technique, and then in this case we'll be using black powder since we're in AoE. Technically I lied. Because we're using Trickster, we'll keep using Eviscerate. We'll Eviscerate in this low target count. If we had 8 targets or more, I would black powder, but because we have less than 7 targets, we can just Eviscerate. It'll do more damage than black powder will. Because Nimble Fury deals 50% of normal damage of your auto attacks, backstab, shadow strike, and eviscerate, right? So you'll do 50% of 1,000 or 193,000 is still greater than 800,000, right? So it is more damage to eviscerate in lower target counts than it is to than it is for black powder, right? Cool. just get that clarification out of the way. Then I'll go ahead and go. So we're gonna go into the pack. We're gonna Shadow Strike. You're going to Slice and Dice. We're going to not Fan Knives. Shuriken Storm, Rupture, Shuriken Storm, Rupture, Shuriken Storm, Rupture. Then we're going to Flagellation. This is where you normally Flagellation, Rupture, into Sims of Death, Shadow Blades, Shadow Dance. You know, when you put your Shadow Blades, you're gonna pop your Trinket Potion and Pot. And yeah, let's just go ahead and get it going. Just note, when you swap specs, your and talents for the matter, your bleeds go away, or your not bleeds, your poisons go away. All right, so gonna go ahead, Shadow Strike, and then Slice and Dice into Shuriken Storm, Rupture. Gonna go in Rupture Spread, just Shuriken Storm, Rupture, Shuriken Storm, Rupture, and do it one more time to get all the ruptures on all these targets. Then we're gonna go find our main target. We're going to, at that point, pop Flagellation, Symbol of Death, Shadow Blades, Shadow Dance, and pop our Subtlety. Going to Shadow Strike for, well, we can Shadow Strike or we can use our Shuriken Storm for combo points. I believe it's probably better for Shadow Strike. When you're in Shadow Blades, I feel like it takes longer to get Shuriken Storm off than it does to press Shadow Strike. It's probably just a feel thing, but okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, and go. All right. You want to start reapplying your ruptures here. Right, we have a cooldowns back up. That was a pretty sad secret technique I did there, but we're not gonna talk about it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This build will do a little bit better when you have multiple or more targets. This low target count is going to probably favor the Raid Trickster build that I showed you earlier. This build is more going to be for Mega Pulls and Mythic Plus when you're doing like pulling 20 mobs or whatever, right? And stuff. It'd be easy because if I look at the damage breakdown of the fight. Alright. So Nimble Flurry was top damage, right? Then we had Secret Technique and Rupture. So Rupture is going to scale up when more target counts we have. Nimble Flurry will fall off. We'll start using Black Powder instead of our Eviscerates. We only use Eviscerate here because we only had 5 targets. If we had 8 or more, we would use Black Powder. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Quick thing, I wanted to say before I go, bosses that I think should use certain builds for raid specifically. I'll have these 3 builds in the description. Feel free to use this. Any build on Wowhead, Icy Fiends, play around. Rogue's fun. Have fun with that. But yeah, my recommendations. So for Shift J, there we go. For Ulgrax the Devourer, this is definitely the Raid Trickster build. The boss damage that you lose from the lack of boss damage that you lose by not going the Deathstalker version of the build, it's like nothing. Like compared to like the ad like assuming you make it to the ad phase and you don't just like sub 1 minute sub 1 minute kill Olgrax, this the Trickster build's gonna be better. Because as soon as those ads come out, it feels really bad to use the Deathstalker build on Olgrax, just because the ads come out, they're really squishy. You can't really single target them very well. The funnel damage isn't really there. Bloodbound Horror, same thing. The ads just make it really nice. The like low target cleave of Trickster, the rate Trickster build's really good. Silkren, this is actually I think really the only fight that I would actually recommend using the Deathstalker build, since it's pure single target. Rushing on, I would use the Trickster build because the ads that spawn, you can do a lot of pad, a lot of cleave onto Rashidon. Ovanax, definitely the Trickster build. I wouldn't use the Mythic Plus version because the ads don't live long enough for your Rupture to actually do things, because you want to blow those ads up like instantly. So the burst damage that you get with Ovanax, or by using the raid version of the build with the Shadowdust and being able to time your cooldowns for each of the egg hatching phases, is very useful. Kaivesa, you could go the Deathstalker build on Kaivesa. Yeah. I actually, this is probably the second build or second boss I would probably recommend doing the build on. So Silkran and Kaivesa, probably those are gonna be your two real single target bosses. Silken Court, this is definitely a Trickster build. Low cleave. The 2-target cleave on Trickster is absurd. You do so much damage on your cooldowns. Ansurek also, heavy cleave. Definitely use the Trickster build. Alright guys, last few things I'm going to go over before I wrap up the video is a few Weakauras. You saw in the video earlier that I have a Symbols of Death Weakaura. You don't really need this. It's just to remind myself that I have Symbols of Death off cooldown. But if you want to make it, this is how I did it. I just chose this kind of model background, and yeah, it's pretty simple. Not much to it. It just triggers whenever Symbols of Death is whenever Symbols of Death is not on cooldown, it'll show, and then it just reminds me to press Symbols of Death. Another one, arguably a little better, is this Flawless Form Weakaura I made. So instead of triggers, what I did, okay, so to make this, I just used a progress bar, right? Set up the trigger so that it would trigger on a buff, Flawless Form. So whenever I have the Flawless Form buff, I know how long that I have to do my AoE cleave damage with Eviscerate. It just helps me know when I need to reapply or to keep fishing for a Unseen Blade proc. Yeah. For the display, it's just a red gradient bar. I had it vertical instead of horizontal. Smooth progress, top to bottom, and just moved over there. For the text fitting display text %n, it's just gonna display this. And then I just messed with the size until it looked right to me. I have the time left remaining on Flawless Form with the second thing of text. Have that set. The anchors are the important part. So this is for the first text, where it says Flawless Form. So it anchors to the right, So the center, the right of the bar, then just have the offset move so that the text is on the side of it. And then for the text 2, I did basically just added an extra thing of text with %p as the number, and then same thing, except I did it to the center. Doesn't really matter. I could have done to the right. I wouldn't have had less. Would have had to move the offset less, but it doesn't matter. It works. And yeah, I don't really know how to export Weakauras and stuff, so yeah, and they're kind of just basic and ugly. The last Weakaura that I have is the Secret Technique bar. It just says Secret Techniques, and then yep, it just triggers when the aura player buff Shadow Techniques when the stack count is greater than 6, so 7 or greater, it shows up, and then I know I can press another finisher. It's just a visual reminder that I can double finisher. Alright then, that's pretty much it. Alright guys, I want to thank you guys for watching the guide. This is my first time I've made a guide, and I'm also still recovering from a sickness, as you may or may not be able to tell. It's also my birthday today, and it's also 6:30 in the morning, and I get work later, and all this stuff I gotta edit. But I've been rambling for like 4 hours, so I'm gonna cut this down, and yeah, well, I'll see you in the next one. Peace. I just killed myself.